Hi, my name is John Godoy, and I am a corporate trainer for a municipal government up in Canada. And the objective of my videos is just to share some of the best practices that I've come to find make truly effective and enjoyable training sessions. Now, in today's video, I want to share with you two just really useful insights that I've come to realize are absolutely effective in training. It makes it really enjoyable and it gets much more audience participation during the sessions. I've been in many sessions where you go in there and many of them have been voluntold to be to the training in the first place. And when people are voluntold by their leadership to be in a training session, quite often they're not very engaged. And the other challenge with the modern environment is that people's attention spans are generally not as great as they were before. Now, I'm not saying that their literal attention spans have gone down, but their tolerance for things that are boring have really come down. And that's really a function of the fact that they can consume all sorts of different information through social media, through video, through all sorts of different mediums. And it's accessible very, very quickly. And they have the ability to switch and switch and switch and switch very quickly as well. And so training sessions really need to keep up with that, literally keep up with it. And so there are two things that I really want to share with you today. The first one is just to focus on having a conversation with the learners. Have a conversation with them. That means it's just perpetual interaction. It's not where you stand up on the stage or you stand up at the front of the class and you just share information with everybody and it's just read off the slide. You literally have conversations with people. Now, I've seen many times where trainers they essentially just go point by point by point off of slides because they really haven't grasped that idea that it's important to have that conversation. Or for many of them, they can feel like they lack a little bit of confidence because you need to have a fair amount of confidence to interact, to engage, because a lot of that confidence comes from the ability to think quickly on your feet. Now, I understand why some trainers don't want to go in that direction. They'd rather just kind of share information. It's just going to generally go in one ear and out the other. So it's just so important to get good at thinking on your feet and having effective conversations with the audience. Now, the second strategy that I think is absolutely essential, it's based on the reality that we just came out of the pandemic. And what the pandemic did is that it just really created a large social disconnect with people. We were in isolation for a long period of time. We couldn't interact in larger groups. We couldn't congregate in larger groups for long periods of time. And that impacted people and their ability to socially connect decreased. So perhaps their confidence and their courage to connect with other people kind of went down. Perhaps their desire to do so, because perhaps their skills kind of came down, made them feel less pushed, I guess, or compelled to connect with others. But ultimately, the byproduct or the outcome of a long period of isolation, social isolation, is a yearning for human connection. And then a lot of organizations at the same time, they have hybrid work environments. So you go to work and your colleagues may not be working in this office on the same time and the same date as you are. And then you have organizations that are completely remote, where colleagues rarely ever see each other. So that's where training can become a powerful tool of human connection. And that becomes the primary or one of the primary draws that training is to the learner, to get them more vested in wanting to actually go. And so how you actually apply this is that you build into your training a 30-minute, at the very beginning, networking session. And it's not just say, hey, come 30 minutes early and network, because you've probably seen where you've put that into place and people just kind of sit by themselves and nothing happens. It has to be strategic networking. Go in, put people in tables, get them talking, leave them a cue card on a subject to talk about, connect people, introduce people. And so that requires you as a trainer, or that requires the trainer, whoever it is, to really be the person who initiates and becomes the facilitator of conversation. You do that, you create a very powerful human connection at the beginning of your training program, whether it's an internal team that's working together or it's disparate group members from disparate groups within your organization. They have that connection. And then so when the actual formal training begins, you may not necessarily need to have as much of an icebreaker because that networking was that opportunity. Now, important concept to keep in mind when it comes to why this is so effective is a fundamental principle of communication. And that is, in any communication you have with another individual, there are always two variables at play. The first is the relationship variable, the relationship that you have with that individual. Is it strong or is it weak? Do you know them? Do you not know them? And then the second is the actual message that you're trying to convey, the information. And that relationship essentially serves as a filter or a barrier that determines whether or not the message gets through or how effectively it gets through. And so when you're conducting a session and people don't necessarily know each other, it's harder for information to get through. It's harder for people to communicate with each other. It's harder for people to open up. But if you can nip that in the bud in the very beginning through this 30 minutes of networking, well, then all of a sudden people are going to be much more comfortable and open to speaking and sharing. So those are just two very simple yet powerful tools that I believe will truly enhance any training program that you have. Simply reframe the program as a conversation with the audience in your mind. So you're constantly interacting, constantly engaging, constantly asking their opinion, constantly listening. It's just like a human conversation. I shouldn't say a human conversation, just like a conversation with another individual. You spend a good portion of your time listening, not just sharing information. And then the second part of it is really just as important, and that's that human connection. Build that into your program itself. Good luck.